Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Strangle your demons and let's go.
Y'all need Jesus!
Alright. You can never know what it's like. Your blood like winter freezes just like ice, and there's a cold, lonely light that shines from you. You'll wind up like a wreck. You hide behind that mask you use. Trump's back, boys. Is that the U.S.? We've been hiding behind a mask, leaving wrecks everywhere we go. And just like Trump, don't you know I'm still standing better than I ever did. Looking like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid. And I'm still standing after all this time, picking up the pieces of my life without you on my mind. Trump's still standing. Yeah. What have they done to him, man? What have they done to our president? Let's take a look. I mean, under the guise of compassion, what have all these media pundits, governmentally controlled media pundits, what have the Democrats said? Trump's a dictator. He's a threat to us, them, and their way of life. Oh, yeah. He's a threat to democracy. We've already done plenty of episodes at democracy, especially when we go to spread it. Leads to death and destruction under the very same name that begins with a D. And we're free, aren't we? Don't you feel free here in America? You feel free to say whatever is truly on your mind these days? I bet you do not. Oh yeah, they accuse old Trump. He's a threat to their power, their rule. And what did Joseph Goebbels say? Remember my episode, The Big Lie? Accuse your enemy of that which you are guilty. And that's exactly what the fascist Democrats do. They will stop at nothing to pursue, and since we mentioned Goebbels, pursue and defend their 1,000-year Reich. They're no better than the Nazis. Oh yeah, President Trump's been slandered. Let's see, impeached, political allies jailed, starting off with Flynn. It's amazing how we began in Ukraine and we're back to Ukraine. Beginning of the presidency, Ukraine is totally under siege at this time. Now they try to off President Trump. The other tactics didn't work. He's been indicted. He's been convicted. And now shot in the effing. We could say head, but if he wouldn't have shifted his head, and if you are some of my listeners and you know me, you know we've already shared some photographs. We've seen the projectiles whizzing by as he made that subtle adjustment. And right as he did so, you see him reach up, because that is when, after the projectile passed through that flap of cartilage and skin, his sensory awareness had picked it up and he was able to reach up and feel. Took him another second to process it. He drops to the ground. I think our president, with the good Lord above, actually saved himself. It damn sure wasn't the Secret Service. And we know they were part and are part of this government that has attempted to take President Trump's freedom, our freedom, in this lack of freedom country that we live in today. We've been building up, and I have laid out the case for you. It is time we went through rewiring our brains to simply now relearn our history. Because these people that attempted that assassination on President Trump, it's a complex mechanism boiled down to some simple moving parts, one of which is now dead. But they don't want us to know our history. They don't want us to know their machinations. And we've already sang the song. Trump is still standing. And why is he still standing? Divine providence. The Lord has been rebuking us. He is calling us into his awareness. He is calling us into his presence. We are now standing before him with a decision to make. Are we going to act? Are we going to move? Or are we going to cower back into the shadows by which these guys govern and do things in secret? And I'm going to tell you our secrets now are simply refusing to act. They've already subjugated us. That is the reason they had such disdain for them. He wanted to liberate us. And it is now our time, just like that Led Zeppelin song, your time is going to come. America's time has now come. Oh yeah, not for America's time, meaning the entrenched apparatuses that control us, but for our people to rise up. For the people to rise up, regain the autonomy and the quality of life that we thought we could achieve, but we were duped. And it is now time for us to rise up and excommunicate these that are holding us back and that just attempted to kill our best chance off. So just like that song says, your time is going to come by Led Zeppelin, how does it go? Lying, cheating, hurting, that's all you seem to do. Messing around every guy in town, putting me down for thinking of someone new. Yeah, we're lying, cheating, and hurting everywhere in the world. Messing around with everyone else in the world. Leaving our own people to languish, to suffer. Oh yeah. And that's what Trump represents for us. So how did this thing go down? You think the Secret Service did a good job? No, they didn't. What about, now I'm going to tell you, we're going to go through some things here. Some confirmed, some non-confirmed. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to begin with, it took place in Pennsylvania. What if I told you I'm in regular communication from time to time from someone that would have been, there's a million names, and you know what, this gets too pinpoint precise, but let's just say America's tip of the spear in the global war on terror. But you would think that this guy would have ended up on the East Coast, or you would have think that this guy ended up on the West Coast. But no, he had family in Pennsylvania, so that's where he's at. He's already done his own internal investigation. He's given a little bit of feedback. Since we're talking about the Navy, I've received info from guys that are working in other countries that used to be in ONI. I've received information from civilian guys. I've exchanged information ad nauseum. Some of the people who are close to me have seen pics that are no longer up. We've gone through schematics. We've gone through the whole deal. And I'm going to tell you, let's remove the shooters from the top of the building. We will call that, since so many people have the photos in front of them or have looked, we'll say the red and white building that the, Secret Service snipers were perched upon. Now, they've been called this colloquially because they were a sniper team, or what we would actually call a counter sniper team. They're perched upon that rooftop to alleviate or mitigate the concern of any other snipers that could be in and or around, and due to the nature of their equipment, that would even be inclusive of outside of the cordoned off perimeter. Now, we know from their insignia, it simply said police, so that doesn't discount the fact that they could have actually been Secret Service personnel, or they could have been another governing jurisdiction's law enforcement. However, we keep hearing the name Jonathan Willis as the actual counter sniper shooter that eliminated the suspect. And what's that fool's name? Thomas Matthew Crooks. Oh yeah, we always got to have three names in these attempted assassinations. Think John Wilkes Booth, Lincoln. That was back in the 1860s. I'm going to tell you that may not actually be the case. It's not appropriate for this show, but three names in a full name. John Wilkes Booth. Then, of course, we go to the attempted assassin. We know that's been discredited every way since Sunday, but they eliminated him. What was his name? 3 names within one name. Lee Harvey Oswald. Okay. Now we have Thomas Matthew Crooks, also eliminated before he could ever be spoken to, interrogated, and or more information found out. I'm going to tell you right now that our enemy works in patterns. They have very distinguishable traits that they will always follow in and about. And you can follow those breadcrumbs to get to a more complete picture. They just don't want you to have the complete picture. But anyways, we know that Mr. Willis, and we're going to assume he was with the Secret Service. I have heard so many conflicting things. Now, we know that he did the shooting, and if you've watched the videos, we know he eliminated Thomas Matthew Crooks. We can see the recoil on the rifle. We can see who the other named his partner is. When they lock in, they're obviously very worried because approximately, if you've seen full footage, a minute to a minute and a half before, they're standing upright, kind of smoking and joking. And all of a sudden, shit gets real serious. And they are looking down their scopes. Now, where they are looking at, and since we all have access now to photos and videos, is since it is basically singular color, kind of beige and white, we'll call it the white structure, approximately 150 meters away, where Thomas Matthew Crooks was allowed, despite the fact that it is a 3-building complex, only 150 meters away. When you go perimeter to perimeter, meaning contiguous and touching, it's even less than that. We're talking the buildings. He was allowed to walk up, actually in front of spectators, one of which he was interviewed by the BBC. I believe a lot of you may still have that footage. In some cases, it's been removed. But if people got a hold of it and posted it off all their individual feeds, it's very hard to contain, and that is what has happened. So dude comes up, sets up a ladder. He's in his, what do we want to call them, utilities, store-bought, camis, whatever the fuck, in his T-shirt that he ordered off a YouTube site. And he walks up the ladder with his rifle. Gets up on the doggone roof. They see him low crawling to the pitch of the roof, the center crest of the roof. And they're begging and pleading for people to take notice. All right. All this is going on. Now, we've heard differing reports that if in fact it was Mr. Willis, the Secret Service sniper, that he had him in his scope for approximately 3 minutes. And we were told that both counter snipers of the Secret Service watched him get his, what we would call his lie, kind of perfected, get settled in. He didn't take anything else with him. Maybe the roof's hot. I don't know. It's a metal roof. He's trying to get comfy. He gets himself set up in a prone position. I can't tell from any of the photos that I've been able to see if he had any rest, meaning any way to, other than his own body, to set about his prone position and get an accurate shot off and or shots. Now, they watch him fiddle around. I've also heard from someone who I find very reputable within the special operations community that because of the guy that was interviewed on the BBC and him and his group and or party, that 2 police officers attempted to get up on the roof and that they also utilized a ladder. I don't know if it was his, if it was their own, But when the first one crested the ladder to get up on the roof, that Crooks then turned his rifle on him. He was so alarmed, he fell off the ladder and fell down, which then put Thomas Matthew Crooks in overdrive, and then he had to fire said shots. And I believe the one that nipped his ear, meaning President Trump, was approximately the third shot, which would have made sense if he was now having to deliver the rounds in haste, right? It's not that far away. It's a very easy shot, even with open sights, if the sights are good. But if he had all that going on around him, then that would make perfect sense. But it doesn't quite correlate with the fact that we haven't heard anything from Mr. Willis. He would have seen the police personnel crest the roof because they engaged him immediately within those few seconds there once the shots were fired. And I didn't hear any mention of that from his purportedly corroborating statements. What I have also heard, though, was after they eliminated Thomas Matthew Crooks, that as soon as Mr. Willis got back down off of that roof where he was providing protection for President Trump, that the FBI, our own Federal Bureau of Investigation, arrested him, meaning another governmental employee, took him in for questioning, and he has been relieved of his duties. Now, if his story is correct, he said he fired despite the fact asking to engage and being told by a lady. Now, who is that lady? That he could not shoot said target. We know that there is a lady now in charge of the Secret Service. I would have to look her name up. I don't have it committed to memory. They fall under the chain of command of the Department of Homeland Security. And we know that previous to this, that President Trump's team, including his Secret Service detail, because he is entitled to Secret Service protection for life, has made repeated requests. I have seen them in writing. Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent, has talked about it on Fox News. They have asked for beefed up protection for the last 3 months because they have already foiled 2 other assassination attempts on President Trump, one of which occurred in Las Vegas that you heard very little about. Each time they have been rebuffed. And you're like, there's no way it would be rebuffed. Oh, bullshit. Biden took away the ability for RFK Jr., who would be his Democratic political opponent, despite the fact that his uncle, John F. Kennedy, our president, was assassinated, and his father, Robert F. Kennedy, were assassinated. In order to keep him from splitting the Democratic vote and or to win it outright, he has made RFK Jr. fund his protectionary detail purely out of his pocket. So you're telling me he hasn't rebuffed President Trump in getting extra protection? All the while he is increasing the incendiary rhetoric, and every Democrat is, and there are so many social media posts that people are sorry he wasn't killed, have extorted him being killed. A week before all this occurred, they said, my one job, this is President Biden's tweet, is to beat President Trump. It is time to put him in the bullseye. That's not inflammatory language. So let's roll back to the basics. And let's go back into my old world. Let's go back into the world where I still interface with people. And let's go back to some of the people who have run and gunned and probably shot more people in the face within being 8 to 10 feet away from them than anyone else in the world, other than a handful of men. And here's what they have told me. We're going right back here to PSD, baby. PSD for us. Personal security details. There are some security basics 101. And wouldn't you think that the Secret Service is well beyond security basics 101? Are you telling me that this 20-year-old kid outsmarted the entirety of the United States Secret Service and the miscellaneous apparatchiks of the Department of Homeland Security. Now, keep in mind, I have been right outside the cordoned off area after being thoroughly screened when Marine One lands. You're like, well, where the fuck is this? Where was it? How about Normandy Beach? How about right outside of that for a D-Day celebration? Now, this was back when Bush W was president. Yeah, that's right. I was there with him, Francois Mitterrand, Condoleezza Rice. Oh, at that time he would have been, was he chairman of the Joint Chiefs or secretary? No, the Condoleezza, yep. He was still in the Army, okay. Colin Powell. We had all those heads of state. And did you know that's the time when you never, ever make an inadvertent move, a quick reaction? Did you know every building, as far as I could see, had counter sniper personnel on it? And I can see past 150 meters. But in this case, those buildings were left unoccupied. And I am going to tell you that a basic, security SOP would dictate that you never allow, even if you did not want to place someone up there, you would have to, just simply because you would not want any of your security threats to take any useful piece of terrain that could then violate your security plan, even if it did not originally include it. You would never leave a piece of ground, much less a heightened piece of ground, so the enemy could then place themselves upon it. So even if you decided not to occupy it, it could still infringe upon your security plan. And I'm going to tell you this, I have never ever heard of a Secret Service security plan in the open like that did not have a cordoned off perimeter to at least 500 meters. This man was left to go up on a roof within 150 meters. Now the Secret Service has come out with a statement. Oh yeah, we liaised. We worked in liaison with local law enforcement. Local law enforcement isn't the one responsible for the president's or a candidate's protection. If they can't provide it adequately and or you don't have a question, it's your job to cover that vantage point. It's your job to cover that complex. 3-building complex in a parking lot. That dude just simply drove up there, parked, walked up there with a ladder and got up there. Why? Because he not only did not outsmart the Secret Service, he was told to do exactly that because that area would be left open. His only potential barrier until the very end would have been a civilian taking matter into his own hands. And I guarantee you they were alarmed enough to, but if a dude's on a rooftop with a rifle looking down at you, it kind of changes people's opinions. In my humble estimation, Thomas Matthew Crooks, the 3 named would-be assassin, was sent there. That area was made available to him. And our own Secret Service, or who actually fired on their behalf to eliminate him, was told to stand down and allow this man to at least have a chance to destroy President Trump. Any further hope that we have and the hopes for America to change its course. Once the rounds went down, then we had to act. We knew by that time, once Trump had dropped, that he was not going to be successful, and then they had no choice but to kill him. And I believe his account, if in fact that is Jonathan Willis, that he wanted to engage earlier, was told that he absolutely could not. He waited until he could no longer, and then he took out Thomas Matthew Crooks. And that was set in stone. The reason they were told to stand down was so that he could have a chance to shoot at Trump. And then when it did not come into fruition, they would then eliminate him so we would have no one else to talk to. Much akin to Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, let's go to the security on the stage. Before Trump ever reached up and felt his ear, his neck, whatever he was reaching for, 3 to 4 rounds had already went down. We already heard the popping. I'm going to tell you that the Secret Service personnel on the stage was slower than my son could have jumped on Trump quicker, positioned at where they were. And then they waited way too long as they were on top of him. I never saw any effort simply to barricade him with the adjacent personnel on the ground and carry his ass out of there if need be and to blanket him. I loved the act of defiance, the fight, raising his hand. And maybe they all felt that the threats had been neutralized. Well, they had no idea about the threats before. So what about anyone else? Or maybe if it was truly orchestrated and they could not engage until Thomas Matthew Crooks engaged, well, then maybe they knew that they truly did have everything good to go. And it was okay to be lackadaisical because, my God, they looked entirely lethargic and lackadaisical to me. What is Trump, 6'2", 6'3"? You're going to have 2 or 3 ladies gathered around him that are a head shorter than him, wrapping their arms around him in conjunction with other people whereby he is still exposed? Then you're going to allow him, you're going to gingerly walk around with him exposed the whole time. He rises up again as he gets ready to take a step down the stage. His torso is still exposed going all the way to the beast. And you still have the ladies around him who cannot provide adequate shielding. And then instead of knocking him down, forcing him down, putting him into the beast, they let him step on, what would we call that at the bottom, where you basically step on floorboard, foot railing. His head then elevates as he steps up to then lower himself to go back in. He was completely exposed the whole time, which tells me they knew that no one else could have violated that space because that was the only person that had been set up to do so. Had this not been staged, they would have been totally on a swivel. God, I hope so. And so vigilant and alert, it would not have been funny. If that is our Secret Service, I mean, my God, man. I mean, send them around the world to protect some other people that we don't like. That was heinous. And think about this, men. There were good, proficient men wanting to protect the President of the United States. And they stuck those 3 or 4 women in their place, whose bodies alone, we don't even need to discuss their skill sets, preclude them from adequately covering the leader of the free world, or the person that we at least think is the leader of the free world. It is an outright travesty. So why did they have to kill him now? What put the burr in their saddle? What got them to throw the match onto the pyre doused with gasoline? Of course, nothing else has worked. Trump is just getting increasingly more popular. Even the people who were duped in the last election and actually did. I'm not talking about the fake votes for Biden, but the ones who actually voted for Biden. Many are now going to be voting for Trump. This is before all this catastrophic shit came down the pipe. They are so desperate. And this isn't simply a matter of Republican versus Democrat or Democrat versus Republican. And in my mind, you can call them the Republicrats and the Demicans. They're all the effing same unless they're honest, and there only may be a handful of those dudes up there. This is so far beyond that. You've already heard me say we've sent how much? A few $100 billion to Ukraine. I've already told you what Lockheed Martin, how their market cap has grown during this war, what they have booked for the upcoming war of attrition. And they are hoping for a full-scale war and that all the NATO members will purchase with them. They already have the contract signed. I have already told you that Larry Fink, the head of the biggest multinational corporation in the world, BlackRock, headquartered here in the United States. For example, if you look at a company like Microsoft or BlackRock, or Apple, or Coca-Cola, or any of those companies, you may have board members, or you may have someone in the form of a Gates that is still a majority owner of that company, but your largest shareholder after that is always going to be BlackRock. They own everything and everyone. Why would Larry Fink, the CEO of the biggest money manager we have in the United States of America, the biggest multinational corporation in America, go meet with the likes of a Valdemar Zelensky, a depraved vaudeville actor who sits and shakes his ass and dresses like a woman? The patronage deal was done. If America's proxy army, we lead it in conjunction with Great Britain and everyone else, if we can be successful by fighting through other people, BlackRock will have total rights to Ukraine. Every bit of arable soil, that's the breadbasket of Europe, every bit of infrastructure that needs to be built, including pipelines, it'll all be under their thumbs and our rebuilding efforts, aka companies like Burrow Global, Bechtel, Halliburton, KBR, all of them. Don't you get it, guys? And here's what really happened. We had the NATO summit in Washington. Viktor Orban, the prime minister of Hungary, who is essentially both Ukraine and Russia's neighbor, excused himself. And you know where he went on Thursday? Now, this shooting occurred Saturday. Thursday, he went to, we had it all. No, he wasn't down in Key Largo, but he was at Mar-a-Lago. He went to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump because before coming to Washington, the prime minister of Hungary had already met with Putin. He had already met with Zelensky. He went to discuss peace with President Trump. President Trump cannot do this via any other method. You've got the most powerful eavesdropping police force in the world other than Israel, headquartered right here in the United States of America. It's what sent Julian Assange away. It's what sent Edward Snowden away. And they know every keystroke of what President Trump pecks, every conversation he has. So dude has had to go rogue. Just like John Gotti, once he realized that Giuliani had bugged the Ravenite Social Club, then they had to go to security and or video footage, and he would walk up and down the streets where he could not be eavesdropped upon and have his meetings with Sammy the Bull and whoever else it was that they were discussing things with. So he needed a personal meeting with Viktor Orban. Trump gave his feedback, gave him the assurance, just like he told the American people in the debate, before I take office, before I take the oath of office, the Russia-Ukraine war will be over. This is a war that they cannot have go away. It was designed to cover all their demonic activity before, and I've already laid it out for you. I don't think I need to go through that again. And there is so many trillions of dollars and then their long-term plan at stake that they just cannot abide this. And isn't it interesting that the simple call to the special prosecutor investigating the Clinton Foundation, the Burisma appointment for Hunter Biden, the appointments on other oil and gas boards for John Kerry's son, Nancy Pelosi's son, yes, Mitt Romney's son, along with Hunter Biden, and then a subsequent call to Zelensky is what got Trump impeached and Flynn decapitated. And here we are again. Now that he has promised peace and that he cannot be stopped, they had to take out the final straw and attempt to kill him. But it didn't work. God wants us to come clean. God wants to provide him protection. And God only knows what they have in store for us. They know they cannot win at the ballot. This is going to become very, very interesting. And on that note, I would be remiss. Now, keep in mind, man, I'm brainstorming and putting together an assimilation of so many facts and pieces of correspondence and thinking about this. I was almost remiss. How was it that they decided to come up with this particular shooter? It always takes me a bit. I haven't committed his name to memory. Oh, yeah, Thomas Matthew Crooks. So the three-name shooter. How did they come up with this 20-year-old young man who graduated approximately 2 years before from high school? And now we're hearing that he was bullied. Now we're hearing that his house was laden with explosives. Now we're hearing that his car had explosive materials in it. Did it really? Did the house really? Is this what they're telling us? If they're telling us that, then they put them there. That dude, the explosives are irrelevant. If they came into the picture in any way, shape, or form, then he would have used explosives. That was not his job. That is to corroborate their false narrative. If they're telling us about it, they put them there. The same people you're saying, who are they? The same people that allowed him to go to an unoccupied space where they should have had security, crawl up on that roof, have an unabated line of sight, and fire at the president. Those same people. Now, this guy, I have not corroborated this information, but I have received it from 3 sources. Everyone has seen the photographs of Thomas Matthew Crooks. Everyone has seen the photographs of the dead specimen on top of the roof after Mr. Willis supposedly killed him. And yes, you can tell that that is the same person. Well, if that is the case, you can also tell that the pictures I have seen of Thomas Matthew Crooks from 3 different individuals, they have shown me his senior year in high school. For whatever reason, and I haven't tied this together, he was an actor in a BlackRock commercial. And BlackRock, once again, is who has patronage rights to Ukraine. So this relationship goes back a couple of years. What I need to do is corroborate the fact that that is actually him in those 3 photographs that I have seen. And when I have a definitive answer, and I believe it is already yes, I will tell you so. But BlackRock and the people that work for BlackRock have already found Thomas Matthew Crooks. He has the perfect alibi. The loner. He was bullied. He's now mad, even though he's given money, and he is a registered Republican. We know that he has been involved purportedly in all kinds of Democratic Antifa bullshit stuff, giving a few simoleons to Joe Biden on Inauguration Day. His family's of a Democratic bent, and if his allegiances aren't well known, we do know his parents, and they're ardent Democrats. Both are LPCs, licensed professional counselors in the state of Pennsylvania. So another great, what would we say, tangent to the story. We have people who are mental health professionals who can then say our son was nuttier than a damn football bat. He was having all these things. I don't know what their titles are exactly and or if they have the ability to prescribe medications. But if they do, typically these shooters are always on some form of antidepressant and or an SRI drug whereby they have visions of killing and or destroying themselves. But I would tell you that his path was a little bit more methodical and a little bit more of singularity. Moreover, he did it fully knowing that whether he was successful or not, dude was going to die. So there had to be some shit steeped up here in order for this 20-year-old kid to go down like that. So was he under the influence of something? Possibly. What I want to find out is how deep his ties to Black Rock go, and that will give us all the answers. I want to know about these parents. I want to know who they really are and how far back this communication actually goes. This shit is going to get interesting, guys. I have no idea what they're going to do, and I just say, let's pray. Let's pray, pray, pray. So until next time on the Comfortable in Chaos podcast, I bid you bon voyage, my burgeoning flock.